Hi, I'm Ben-Yaakov. This presentation is entitled Operation and Limitation of MOSFET Double Pulse Test. Let me start off by explaining why do we need to do this test and what's the purpose of this test. Now, I'm showing here the basic element, the basic module, you might say, of all PWM converters. I'm talking about hard switch converter, not resonant or soft switched, but hard switch converters. All of them are built around a switcher and a diode. This is the very basic operation. And here I'm showing the buck, and we see that the turn on of this buck, when the current is passing through this diode and you turn on the upper transistor, this is the switcher, then you have hard switching because the diode is conducting, you turn on the transistor, and then you have a reverse recovery. Here it is, the current is building up, you have a reverse recovery, and then the voltage starts to change, the voltage across the switcher, and then you have an overlap between the voltage and current, and therefore there are switching losses. Same thing goes for the boost, except that the diode is here, so when the current is passing through the diode and you turn on the switcher, you have the same phenomenon. So this is very basic to all PWM converters, hard switched. Now what about the turn off? Well, when there is a current flowing here, say this is the buck, and then you turn off the transistor, then the current of the inductor is actually self-commutating the voltage toward ground, and then, of course, the diode will be conducting. So in this case, we have a behavior which I call it pseudo zero voltage switching, because, well, it's not zero voltage switching, but it's not hard switching really. And then if you are capable of turning off the transistor very quickly, you can actually reduce the overlap between the current and the voltage and therefore reduce the switching losses, okay? So this is the very basic of all PWM converters. Now, what about the synchronous operation? If I add a transistor here rather than the diode, well, it really doesn't matter in terms of the switching losses. The reason is that you cannot have the two transistors conducting at the same time, so you do have to have a dead time. So during the dead time, the current will be passing through actually the diode, the body diode of the transistor, which in many cases it's not a very good diode, by the way. It'll be better off to have a Schottky diode if you can. And therefore, when you turn on this transistor, you do have again hard switching, no matter that you have this extra transistor. Now, this transistor by itself is really working in a very nice set of conditions, because it turns out that during the turn on and turn off, it has zero voltage switching. The reason is that you turn on when there is a current through the diode, and then therefore the voltage drop is only, say, 1 volt, which we call zero voltage, and then you turn it on also against this voltage. So this transistor has a much lower dissipation or power dissipation than this hard switch transistor. Now, what about an inverter? Well, everything is the same, except that since in the inverter you have current coming in and out, depending on where you are at within the cycle. So therefore, in one case you have hard switching in one transistor and then a hard switching in the other transistor, but basically it's the same thing, except that again, they are sort of alternating. Once this will be hard switched, this will be soft switched, and vice versa. So on the average, of course, the power loss is lower per transistor as compared to a buck in which you have in the switcher all the time hard switching, okay? So this is the story about the switching losses. The purpose of the double pulse test is to test the transistor under switching condition and to measure actually the switching losses. Now, to do that, you build up a rig in which you have a transistor, and usually you'll have the same transistor here in the off condition. We have a inductor here, a driver, of course, So you turn on and off this transistor without a load. So therefore, the current will be sort of building up. Every time you turn on this lower transistor, current is increasing, while when the current is passing through the diode, it is decreasing, but since the voltage drop on the diode is small, then it decreases very slowly. So you can't have many pulses here, and usually you'll get by 2 pulses or 3 pulses, and that's it. I've added here another feature, which is actually measuring the power loss or the energy loss, better said. And this will be by actually taking the product of the current through this transistor. This is actually the current through the voltage source, which is the classical way of referring current by a voltage source with 0 voltage. And also this is where usually you'll put a current probe, and then multiplying in these two and taking the integral. So this is the energy running while this simulation is going on. Now this LT-SPICE schematics is around 2 transistors, which are silicon carbide by Wolfspeed. This is the transistor. And this model of this transistor is very nice in that it has also an output or a port for the temperature of the junction and also of this transistor. So you can, while it's running, you can see what is the junction temperature. Now, this point represents the case temperature, which you can tie to 25 degrees if you want, or any other temperature, or actually you put here a thermal network for a heat sink and a voltage source for the ambient temperature. I've connected it to ground, so we're going to see the temperature above 0, that is the junction temperature above the case temperature, okay? And here we have this inductor that is building up the current and the driver. Obviously, this is a specific driver, and R on is 10 ohm and R off is 1 ohm. It's running for at 600 volt. And of course, the current that we'll see is sort of building up. And here is a typical output of the simulation. We see here the gate. We see the current of the inductor 0 at the beginning, and this will be the first pulse. It's going up from 0, and then there's no current at the transistor, and then it will go up again, and then up again. So I'm showing like 3 plus something, almost 4 pulses here. And here we see the temperature, and when there is a loss, there's some change here, which is small, but you can see it better here, of course. You see the temperature jump, and in this particular case, up to this point, we got to 3.6. Well, it's not volt, it's centigrade above the case, okay? And here, which is very important, is the energy. So we see that in each switching, we have a energy loss. Obviously, when the current is passing through the transistor, there is also a loss. You see it's going up again. So this is the conduction loss, or the energy loss associated with conduction, and the jump is the switching loss. So now I can sort of zoom on it. So we see here between the 2 pulses of the gate, okay, between this and this. So we see the turn off at this point and then turn on at this point. Now we see the turn on is about 30 amp or something like that. We see here the reverse recovery, and we see the jump in the temperature due to this loss here. And here we see the jump in the power dissipation, or the amount of energy lost during this turn on switching, and I can actually measure it. Here it is with the simulation, which you can do with the scope. That is, if you are running this dual pulse testing and using an oscilloscope, and then you can do this calculation of voltage times current, and integral of which by the math that usually most modern scopes will have. And here I'm measuring for this particular one when the current is about 30 amp, 390 microcoulomb, which, by the way, this 0.139 millicoulomb, which means that if this transistor will be running at 100 kilohertz, the power loss due to the turn-on switching is 39 watts. That's quite a bit. So this simulation actually mimics what is really happening with this rig of the dual pulse testing. Now, if you'd like to look at the transistor which is at zero voltage switching, there are actually two ways to do it. In both cases, you have to run the two transistors on and off. Obviously, you have to have a dead time between them. And you can still have the inductor to the plus if this will be the transistor you are measuring, because this is running under zero voltage switching, or you can connect the inductor to ground, and then this will be the transistor under test, which will be more convenient, of course, so this will be perhaps preferred. So what are the limitations of this testing, which is basically testing a transistor under some operating condition? One of the limitations is that we are actually measuring one operating point, that is one voltage, one current, and one temperature. So this is not covering all the range of operation you'd expect from this device in the real system. Another very important point is that this is correct for the test rig. So the strain inductances, capacitances, and coupling of lines, as well as the drive, are not necessarily as in the final PCB. So it's sort of an approximation. It is certainly used by manufacturers to get some numbers for the datasheet, but it could be a far cry from your actual transistor in your final PCB, depending on how well you did the rig for the dual pulse testing and how well did you design the PCB. And then finally, one has to remember that we are testing one transistor. Now there is a spread of parameters for the MOSFET. There is a typical, there is a maximum value, sometimes minimum, depending on which parameter you are talking about. And here we are measuring one transistor under one condition, under some operating point. Certainly a very good indication of what is this transistor capable of, but it's certainly not a good number or a very accurate representation of what you're going to have at the final PCB. So this brings me to the end of this presentation. I thank you very much for your attention. I hope you found it of interest and perhaps it will be useful to you in the future. Thank you very much.